Welcome to Ushering 101, an introduction to the purpose, duties, and responsibilities of ushers at Holy Covenant United Church of Christ. Now, one thing I want to say is 99% of what we're talking about is common sense. And, I don't want to act like I'm better than everybody else or I'm talking down to you because these are such common sense things, but we all need reminders, and that will help all of us. I have learned a lot over the last couple of years. When I was first asked to be chairman of the Ushers, someone asked me, I think it was in line as we were leaving the service, and they said, "Would you be chairman of the Ushers?" And I said, "Well, what do I have to do?" He said, "Oh, it's easy. You just write out the schedule and email it out once every quarter, and that's it." I said, "Oh, I can do that." And the very next Sunday, I was sitting in the Sojourners class, and we got all involved in the conversation, and Tom McGraw knocked on the door and said, "Is Barry in here?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you chairman of the Ushers?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "There's nobody ushering and it's time to go in." So it has been a learning experience ever since then. And I don't want to judge anybody. I'm pleased with the service I get from all of our ushers. What do ushers do? Anybody?
Hand out the programs.
Hand out the program. I'm glad you said program instead of bulletin. Hold the door.
Direct people to various the classrooms or the restrooms.
Right, very good. Answer questions.
Yes.
Maybe help them find a seat. But there's more than one kind of usher. The ushers at a wedding do different functions than the ushers at a funeral. If you remember ushers at the theater when you were little, the ushers used to have a little uniform, and they'd come down the aisle with the flashlights and, "Oh, you're making too much noise, or you're going to have to leave." I went to a racing show in Paris years ago, and they had ushers. They had ladies in these skimpy little outfits, and they'd take your ticket and they'd take you to your seat with a flashlight, and then when you got to your seat, they'd say, "Tip, tip, tip, money, tip, 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 tip." Our ushers don't do that. So the function of the usher is determined by what's the venue, what is the institution, the place, the building, whatever that you're ushering for. So now our question is, what is Holy Covenant? What would you say about Holy Covenant? It's a church, of course. What else? Open church. Welcoming. Anything else? Particular word I'm looking for. I am looking for sanctuary. Sanctuary. And here's a complete definition. A sanctuary is a consecrated place. The ancient Hebrew temple at Jerusalem and the Holy of Holies. A sanctuary is the most sacred part of a religious building, as the part of the church where the altar is located. The room in which general worship services are held, a place as a church or a temple for worship. It can also be a place of refuge and protection, a refuge for wildlife where predators are controlled and hunting is illegal. It can also mean the immunity from law that is attached to a sanctuary, like we are granting you sanctuary. You are safe here. The covenant is all of these to me. It is a place of refuge. It's a place of worship. It's the holiest place I know. And as ushers, we are inviting people into that sanctuary. But one thing that we need to do to affect our duties, anybody that comes in, we say, why are these people here? They may give you 100 different reasons Well, I come here because my mama always came here. Well, my sister Mary is singing today and I want to hear her sing. Or my children like this and so I bring them here. There could be an infinite number of reasons that they give you. But the real reason they are here is that God invited them. And if He invited them, we need to be gracious to them, to welcome them the best way possible. We may be the first contact someone has had with any church in their entire life. Or we could be the first church they've set foot in many years. We want them to feel God's welcome, whether or not they return. The impressions they carry away about God, Holy Covenant, and all Christians, those impressions begin forming the second they get on our property. And those impressions continue until the moment they leave. I'll just mention here, when I came to Holy Covenant, I had not darkened the door of a church in 10 years because I had felt rejected, I had felt unwelcome, and I did not feel that I belonged in any of the churches I visited. And I was really scared to come. I tried to get somebody to come and see me first because I wanted to be sure I was welcome. And that never happened, so when I came, I was trembling. When we get to ushering, I want to get beyond just a list of mechanical duties, not just hand out bulletins and pass the offering plate or stand at the door. I want to go far beyond just a list of responsibilities. The heart of an usher is the heart of a servant who does his or her work for our Lord Jesus. Reference there, Colossians 3:24. A church usher has a true love for the people of the church and promotes an atmosphere of reverence and worship in the house of God. If I can give an example, some years back, I hired a young lady to clean my house for me. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. I had Michael, who was even messier than I am. And there were so many things that just weren't getting done. And I hired this young lady to come, and she came and she walked through, and I pointed out things that I wanted done. And she quoted me an hourly rate, and I said, okay. And Michael and I left. We went to the grocery store or the theater or somewhere ever, and came back, and she said she was finished. And I paid her, and she left, and I looked. She had done nothing more than exactly the things I had pointed out. I said, vacuum this carpet. Okay. She vacuumed it, didn't sweep anywhere around it. Yeah. Said, empty the trash can in the kitchen. She emptied it. Yeah. She swept the kitchen, but she didn't sweep under the table. She didn't sweep around the trash can. She did nothing unless I had specifically pointed it out and I want this done. And then she did only minimal with that. A few months later, I hired somebody else. Beautiful little woman named Rocio. I called her Rosie. A little shorter than Nancy. And she came first and she looked. And she looked through the house. And she said, okay. She says, I'll need 4 hours. I said, that'll be fine. And she quoted me a price, and I said, that'll be fine. And when she came, it was a completely different story. She came with everything she could possibly need. She came with a vacuum cleaner, mop, scrub brushes, cleansers, everything. And I said, this is going to be different. When I came back, she had gone over, above, and beyond everything I had pointed out. She hadn't just cleaned the toilet. She had scrubbed the tub, she had scrubbed the walls, cleaned the floors, she had emptied and washed every trash can in the house. I had a load of laundry in the machine that I hadn't dried yet. She dried and folded those. She stripped the bed, washed those linens, and remade the bed. I could not find one speck of dirt anywhere in the house. It sparkled. she went over and beyond. She had a heart to clean. She loved to clean. I'm looking for people with an usher's heart. Doesn't come automatically. I hopefully can develop that type of spirit in my ushers. That's my goal. An usher's theme verse could be very well Psalm 84:10. One day in your court is better than 1,000 anywhere else. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. The inferred meaning there, I would rather be on the bottom rung of whatever happens in the church, just a doorkeeper, than to dwell in tents of wickedness with all types of riches and every type of pleasure and food and everything you can manage and all my needs taken care of for me. No, I'd rather be a doorkeeper than the house of my God. It is essential that we have people with that type of heart. People like you, who are aware of what's going on in and around the building before and during worship. Why do we even need ushers? You know, if we want a head count, we could put up a little turnstile like in the subway and just walk through and it counts. There could be a little machine set up there to hold out and just pass out a bulletin for everybody. We could put a bucket by the door that says, drop your donations here. Yeah. But there's no spirit, there's no person, there's no contact in that. Here's some of the things our ushers do. They greet guests and visitors. You don't have to know every single person's name, but you will recognize familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. You see an unfamiliar face, you can just, even though you're handing out bulletins and people are going in, say, oh, welcome, we're glad to have you here. Or you see somebody that's the second time you see you, say, oh, glad to see you back, welcome. Handing out bulletins, of course, and that can be an extra duty, sometimes at the last possible minute. Somebody comes and says, oh, we've got to put these inserts in, we've got to hand out these envelopes, we've got to hand out these pens and pencils. It happens. We had a Palm Sunday 2 years ago, and somehow, some way, I was the only usher who showed up. I had found somebody else who said, I'll help with the offering, but I'm at the door by myself, and I'm trying to hand out the bulletins. All of a sudden, somebody comes and says, here are the palms to hand out. Oh my gosh! It's Peggy Harrison. She wasn't even an usher. But she graciously stood there and helped and handed out palms to everybody. The unexpected always occurs. Our ushers answer questions, especially if we've got visitors. What type of church are you? Well, who is your pastor? Well, where did she come from? Well, what type of Sunday school do you have? Do you have midweek services? Where are the restrooms? There's any number of questions they could ask. We want to help people find their way. We want to be attentive to anybody who is handicapped. And I use that term loosely. There is a page at the very back of your handout about handicapped and helping making things more accessible for people who have limitations. We need to watch. This person's walking with a walker. Do you want to sit towards the front or towards the back? We need to make sure that that walker is not positioned where it's going to trip others, but not so far away that they can't reach it. If they're in a wheelchair, same thing. Do you want to sit towards the front or towards the back? We may need to move a pew to make a space for them. It may be a communion Sunday. We may need to ask, do you wish to go forward? Or if that's not convenient, we can have them bring the communion to you. Our ushers help keep things on schedule. One of the things is we want to open the doors to the sanctuary at 1:45, start directing people in there. Sometimes we have to negotiate with Jared. They're still practicing, you know, and we're trying to open the doors. He said, we need to practice. And I'm like, 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes and the doors are open. Yeah. Because people need the time to come in, to sit, to get situated. We don't want them rushing in. We want them to have a peaceful worship experience. And while I mention that, it's an old legend, but it's based in some truth. The doorkeepers in the temple, you were not permitted to carry anything through the temple. That was forbidden. Only the Levites who had specific duties and things that they were to carry and bring in were things carried. So we want to, in a sense, stop the burdens at the door. You know, lay your burdens down. Come in, you know, and your mind is free, your heart is free, your focus is free. We can prevent problems from occurring. I try to get here well before time, to bring people into the sanctuary. We never know what we're going to find. The sanctuary is used for more things than just our service. Weddings, funerals, sometimes meetings, sometimes the floors have been buffed. We come in, the chairs are out of position. Need to straighten them up. They had a wedding. They took up all the attendance pads. Where did they go? Sometimes we have to track them down. One Sunday we couldn't find the offering plates. If somebody moved them, we had to find them. We want to prevent problems from occurring. We want our ushers to help solve problems which do occur. Minor things. People bring in coffee into the service sometimes, and there's a spill. Jump up, help them. Does somebody leave the service? Are they sick? Do we need to help them? Or have they just gotten too emotional with the service? We should be attentive if anybody gets up and leaves during the service. You know? Have they been offended by something? Do they need us to call somebody, or because they're ill, or call an ambulance?
Barry, we do have several people that have autism or highly functional Asperger's.
Right.
So their decisioning in the middle of a service might be different than we would expect. So to your point, when those folks get up, I tend to go out and make sure everything's okay so nothing escalates and they endanger themselves.
Precisely. You know, we need to just keep an eye. Is it under control? Do you need any help? Or is there a family member there who's going to calm the child down or whatever? If they're under control, fine. But we want to be available for whatever help they might need. And our ushers are part of giving the extravagant welcome. Now we'll get into some minor specific duties and responsibilities. And I'll say it here, he's not here. Kevin Edwards has blossomed. He was nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof when he started. He was so frightened, he was so nervous, and he has just bloomed. He has come out, he's just relaxed. He's developed the heart of an usher. He looks for the needs. Do you need help today? I'm here. He does a phenomenal job. To greet everybody with a smile. Now this guy, he looks okay. He says, yeah, he's glad to see you. He said, oh, he doesn't care if you come or not. You know, there's something to, you would want to call it vibes or spirit or karma or whatever. It's happened to everybody. At some time or other, you're there at a meal somewhere in a restaurant, and you're minding your own business, and you get this feeling, somebody's watching me. And you turn and look, there's somebody just staring you down. It's judging. And that's what you felt. You felt somebody judging you. Your spirit emanates. Your welcome affects everybody who comes through that door. If you feel lousy, if you're like, they're going to pick up on that. But if you're glad to see them, you will boost their spirits as they come in. Dress appropriately. Well, If somebody came here the first time, they would think, what on earth have I stumbled into? This is a hippie church. This was our 70s worship service last year, and it was a lot of fun, and everybody got a big bang out of it. Here's some of the things that we were talking about that the ushers should do. Tour the sanctuary. Be sure all is neat and ready before the service. Be sure our bulletins are folded. Do we have flyers? Do we have special materials? Our bulletins are normally folded by the Sojourners class. If they're not meeting that day, then we will need to pick up those bulletins and fold them ourselves. We're going to open the sanctuary doors at 10:45. Greet our visitors, hand out the bulletins. At 5 minutes till, we want to see that the altar candles are lit. If we have a child, if we have an acolyte, wonderful. We have had a shortage of acolytes. So if we don't have an acolyte, if we don't have a child, one of the ushers will need to light the candles on the altar. And after that, we need to flip the lights to signal it's time to enter the sanctuary. People get involved. They are so welcome in that gathering room. They don't want to stop, and we have to remind them, hey, you know, this is what we're here for. We're here for the service. One of our ushers needs to complete the weekly attendance sheet. Quite simple to do. The ideal time is during children's message. That way you've got everybody there, you've got all the children grouped together, and sometimes they're hard to see when you're counting because their heads are low. Count all the people. If you start too early, we've always got a few latecomers. So usually all of our latecomers have arrived by the time of the children's message. We want to include the child care workers in our number, include choir, if there's choir up there, Nancy, Jared, musicians, whatever. You know, include all of them in that number. And sometimes there are people here, sometimes among the youth, for whatever reason, they don't want to sit in the sanctuary. They're out there in the church somewhere. Count them too. We want to collect the offering at the designated point in service. New ushers are always nervous about passing the offering plate. They say, what if I drop it? I have never seen an offering plate dropped. You know, I've been going to church for years and years. None of my ushers have ever dropped one. But if there's going to be a mistake in the service, it usually happens here. We had one Sunday, it was so funny, Stephen got out of order, and he's up there and he's ready to take the offering, and Jerry's going there, and he said, Jerry says, what are you doing here? He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm on program. And sometimes we've collected the offering and we go up to the front, and it's a guest minister and he doesn't know what to do with it. They turn around, they want to put it up on the altar or whatever, we have to give it back to us, give it back. And we go to the back of the sanctuary and hand it to the tabulators. If mistakes happen, and they will, don't get flustered. Just keep right on going, stay focused. For communion, we want to assist in guiding our worshipers to the stations to receive the elements. If we didn't have ushers there just gently guiding, it would be just like when people leave the sanctuary. They're all clustered together at the door and everybody's crowded together. By our guiding, we keep the line short, it flows smoothly, we don't have crowding and bumping in the aisles, and it runs smoothly and quickly. Let too many people up there and it becomes a knot. As I mentioned before, be attentive to anyone who leaves the service early. Open the doors at the end of the service. Watch again for special needs. Is there somebody with a walker, a wheelchair, cane, something like that? And I'll mention something here. One Sunday, I think it was about a year ago, we had a couple of children running through the church and giggling, and my immediate instinct was, scold them, you know, don't run into church, you know. But something stopped me, you know. Jesus would say, let the little children come to me. And he would be delighted that they were happy in his house. So I stopped and I told Jesus, come here, kids. He says, you're having a good time, aren't you? He says, uh-huh. I said, I am so glad that you're having a good time and that you're happy to be here. I said, but I need a favor. You do? I said, I do. I said, look over here. You see this little man over here? He walks with a cane. If you ran by him or bumped him, he might get scared and he might fall. Oh, that would be bad. I said, that would be bad. And I said, there's a lady over here who walks with a walker. It's the same thing. Do you think you can be real careful and not rush by them? I said, thank you. And the problem's been solved. And I haven't made church something that they will regret coming to. At the end of the service, we want to collect the attendance sheets from all the pads, return the pads to the position on the inside of the aisle, collect all those sheets, put them with the attendance report, and leave them on Dawn's desk. The service that you give, as simple as it is critical. It establishes the spirit of worship before the people even enter the sanctuary. The service that you give helps create the worship that we all enjoy. Thank you for the service that you give. It's priceless. Our usher schedules, normally I put those out on a quarterly basis. When I mail those out, you will see everybody else who is an usher, their email address and their phone number. If you cannot attend for any reason, you can call me or email me, or you can ask someone else to fill in for you. Either way is fine. It's just difficult when we come in and there's nobody there. So be kind to your other ushers. Don't leave them hanging. And that concludes our program. Thank you very much.